Hello Orchid friends, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time watching my video, my channel is all about orchids. From what orchids I have, how I grow them, my thoughts on certain orchid topics, to what orchids in my collection are blooming, etc. So if you want to follow along my orchid hobby adventure, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on the notification. Today in this video, we're going to look at one of my miniature Oncidium orchids, and its name is called Oncidium Twinkle, and it's the white variety. In Asia, we call this kind of Oncidium Twinkle orchid the Christmas Oncidium because the time of the year that they bloom. But this video is about the way that this orchid is developing and blooming, and also some of the care tips that I have given this orchid. So let's start with a clip from early 2019 January to show you the full bloom state that the orchid was in at the moment. It was giving out very pleasant, sweet fragrance, and the fragrance is really like syrup, very sugary syrup fragrance. For the red variety that I have, that one has a little bit more spice smell to it. So some people would describe it as a cinnamony fragrance, but for the white one, it's just sweet all the way, and it's a very pure sweet fragrance. This twinkle is the only twinkle that I have in the semi-hydro setup, and this one happened to be doing pretty well, and it's actually the only one that doesn't have a whole lot of brown leaf tips. And I'll talk a little bit about that later in the video on the two possibilities that I've learned from many different orchid growers in Taiwan, and also some from China. But anyway, this orchid enjoyed semi-hydro. The other two, the red one, the yellow one that I have, they were in water culture, and I'm still debating if I want to use, for example, moss, or give them some more pebbles. I don't know. I haven't decided if I want to continue to grow the red and the yellow varieties in water culture just yet. But for this one, it seems to be doing fine. So if it's not broken, I'm not going to try to fix it. And I think it'll stay in this semi-hydro setup for at least this year, 2019. No problem. So coming up, we're going to go back in time slightly to December 2018, when it was beginning to develop its buds. This orchid started to put out spikes around late summer 2018, and it took a couple months for the spikes to become mature enough that it would start to put out more buds. And so, I mean, to me, growing Oncidium Twinkles requires a lot of patience, because when you see the spikes coming out, doesn't mean that you're going to have blooms right away. It takes a couple months before you'll even see the buds. But toward end of 2018, that's when it started to open its first flower. It had just passed Christmas, but in Asia we call this Christmas Oncidium, for a good reason, because it blooms around Christmas time, which is pretty interesting. And I guess I think I talked about this in the other video too. For Christmas cactus, maybe that Christmas cactus got the name Christmas in its name is also because the time that it would bloom, probably. Okay, so the care that I give this one, because it's in semi-hydro, I usually only water it once every 2 weeks. Depending on the season and depending on the weather and humidity in my environment, I would then decide if I want to wait for longer than 2 weeks, or if it's not 2 weeks yet, I'll decide if I want to give it water. I usually wait until there is no more condensation inside the cup and it just looks absolutely bone dry, that I will give it water. But sometimes if the weather is not nice, the weather is cold, or the humidity is actually somewhat high, I will wait a couple of days. 1 or 2 days, 3. This orchid doesn't seem to be bothered by, that few days of variation. I use quarter strength fertilizer, and I do still use a little bit of liquid seaweed when I give this orchid fertilizer, and it's doing pretty well. But since we're talking about nutrition, that's actually one of the reasons that some orchid growers are saying why my Oncidium orchids would have brown leaf tips. So one school of thought is more about nutrition, and the other school of thought is more about, maybe my environment doesn't have constant humidity, that when the humidity drops, then Oncidium orchid leaves start to suffer. And these two reasons are all possible because I only use quarter strength fertilizer, and maybe it needs more. And I also don't have my humidifier on when I'm away for days, for example on vacation or for business trips. So it's possible with my central air on all the time that it could get really dry without my humidifier on. So that's all possible. So we'll see. I mean, I will try to make adjustments, but depending on what I can do and systematically and consistently, I will see if I can make an update to help you understand what I've done and whether that makes a difference. The white variety is probably the most common variety of Oncidium Twinkles that you can buy online. I haven't seen Oncidium Twinkles being sold in grocery stores or in regular garden centers, physical garden centers in the United States. But there are lots of online nurseries who do business online that would have Oncidium Twinkle, the white varieties. The pink varieties is also pretty easy to find. Here in America, I find that the yellow variety is slightly more difficult to find, and then the cinnamon variety, which is red/orangey color, that one is even more difficult to find. But I can tell you there is a Taiwanese orchid grower, orchid nursery, that is specializing on Oncidium Twinkles. And I've seen quite a few photos on Facebook that they've posted that they have new varieties coming out and with really interesting color combinations too. But I don't know if that orchid nursery actually comes to the United States for orchid shows, because if they do, I would definitely try to make some pre-order just so that I can get a hold of some of these more interesting color varieties of Oncidium Twinkles. And if I do, I will definitely let you know. But until then, let's keep my fingers crossed, and I will try to reach out to them and see if they do come to the United States from time to time for orchid shows. If you're new to this orchid hobby and you happen to stumble upon my videos on this YouTube platform, I think Oncidium orchids, not just the twinkle variety, but Oncidiums in general, they are very easy orchids to grow, especially for new orchid hobbyists. So if you're interested, definitely get a couple to try to learn how to grow orchids, and then gradually move on to Phalaenopsis orchid, Callia orchids, or even Vandas. But hey, it's a very rewarding orchid, I can tell you that. And after a couple weeks of, enjoying this orchid at home, I took this orchid to my office to share it with my colleagues, just so that they get to see a different type of orchids and enjoy the kind of fragrance, the charming fragrance that this orchid gives out. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this particular orchid's bloom cycle this time around. It doesn't have as many buds, but I feel the flower size are bigger and the flowers are more substantial than last year. So overall, I'm happy with it. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!